honey. Kansas governor vetoes transgender sports ban. Yes, yes, it's still a real thing. If you was wondering who that white woman was in the picture in the thumbnail, then this is her ass. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly. Honey. Matter of fact, let's bring Laura up on the screen, honey. Yes, let's bask in Laura's wrinkles, bitch. Hey, Laura girl, I see you, girl. All right, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly has vetoed a bill seeking to bar transgender athletes from competing in sports teams that match their gender identity, marking the third straight year in a row that she's vetoed such a measure. Okay. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly has two previous vetoes withstood override attempts. It is unclear whether the Republican led legislature will amass the votes needed to enact the measure over Kelly's objections, although initially votes tally in both chambers seem to indicate the votes are there. All right, that's a whole bunch of bullshit journalism jargon to tell you that it's a possibility that this bill will go through. It's a possibility that this bill will go through. As a matter of fact, I'm going to check right now. I was under the impression that the bill has already gone through, but I want to make sure. Yes, the ban is effective. The ban will be banning all trans people from competing. You'll basically have to compete based on your genitals. Basically, going to have to do it old fashioned. Basically, going to have to compete in sports based on your genitals. You know the way that things had been done traditionally before trans people were living openly, or the way people assume that it had been done. Because actually, you have athletes like Renee Richards, who has been around and who has been competing decades since before I was born. You know, I have been openly vexed and confused about this subject myself. Um, I don't really have a stance either way. I don't really have a stance either way because I feel like I personally don't have enough information. And I'm a psychologist. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a physician. But I do think that more should be taken into consideration than genitals. I do think that we should consider muscle mass and bone density as well. That's that's where I'm at with it right now. Um, but I honestly don't have any starch opinions. I continue to do my research and I continue to listen to the professionals, and I think that that's the biggest problem that we have right now. We've politicized something that politicians don't know a lot about. I'm trans myself. I study gender and sexuality, and I'm not sure. Many of my colleagues aren't sure. We're on different sides of the fence, and many people don't even want to discuss it. Me being one, I don't really want to discuss it because I don't know much regarding that, regarding the physicality. And I'm so confused by it because realistically, I know that there are a lot of women who are faster, stronger, taller, um, bigger, broader shouldered than me. There are cisgender women who are faster, taller, stronger. There are trans women who are faster, taller, stronger than me. But there are also cisgender women and trans women who aren't as athletic as I am. I think we have to take a lot of things into account. Like I said, bone density, muscle mass, um, but also we have to take into account that athlete is someone who trains. Like they get joy out of training, they get joy out of competing. Like taking trans people out of these sports, not allowing them to compete only puts us in a situation, only puts us in an environment, only puts us in a society where we have one less option to heal, where we have one less option to work on our mental health. But regardless, at the end of the day, there have been a lot of scientists for a long time. You know, there is like OSHA. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Um, the NFL, the NBA, there are organizations that surround sports internationally that have allowed certain trans people to compete in certain sports based on certain criteria, such as hormones, such as, you know, well, I think it's been hormones. I don't think they really considered muscle mass and bone density. But I could be wrong. I mean, athletes get physicals all the time. Why not include certain tests or assessments that could legitimize or negate an athlete having an advantage, having a genetic advantage? But you also got to think there's a lot of people who don't identify as trans who have a genetic advantage. So the waters are going to get muddy. The waters are going to get muddy. I personally think that this is only being brought up because of Leah Thomas. And pictures like these, images like these, when Leah popped up on the swimming scene, then that's when everything started to look unfair, and that's when everybody started to be super scared, and that's when it looked like this big bad tranny was coming and beating up all these cisgender women, and the women in swimming, the women around her, the women who were competing against her, they joined the fight against her. The majority, for the most part, the ones who were most vocal, you know. And don't get me wrong, it does look, it looks bad. It does look bad. It does look bad. She towers over these women, you know, and competing in swimming and distance racing. Just her height alone does give her an advantage. But there are 6'4" cisgender women, right? And being black, being trans, being a woman, I do understand the fear of erasure. I do understand that, and I think it is valid. You know, I do think that if I do think it trans women could very easily dominate women's sports. But I don't think it's that many trans women athletes. I don't think it's that many trans women who want to be athletes. Not binary trans women, anyway. Not people who are going to go through the whole process of their body being gate kept and monitored. You know, I don't see too many girls like me who, who want to play basketball. And I think what it is for a lot of us, athletics is a masculine stereotype. It goes along with maleness and malehood, and we don't want to be associated with maleness and manhood. Us binary trans women, for whatever reason, for whatever reason. But like I said, we have Leah, but trans people aren't a monolith. Leah isn't the only one. I don't know if you've ever heard of Emma Farnan, but I'm gonna introduce y'all to Emma.
Enough. Look at that, how close to the sideline that is, right in 2 meters in from the sideline. Farnan fields that ball perfectly, taking a page out of teammate Abby Gustitis' book. She's so class at it.
Being trans doesn't mean inherently that I'm going to be a good player. I still work my ass off to be able to be where I am in sports and to be able to continue performing. So often the discussion of trans women in sports comes down to assuming that we are able to play at the same level as men, and we just can't. We are women and we compete equally as a woman.
I know for me that would be the case. I was a competitive gymnast as a kid growing up, and I could never really I could never really compete with the boys. Could never really compete with the boys. Physically, I didn't really have it. You know. So I'm just saying this and sharing all these things because I don't know. I don't know. Where do we go from here? That's the bellicose.